On today's show, we're joined by Houston Rockets broadcaster and former player Ryan Hollins to discuss Jalen Green's growth and development from year 1 to year 2, Alperen Sengun, and some of the defensive concerns that have followed him this season, as well as Jabari Smith Jr. and Tari Eason and how those two guys are navigating their rookie campaigns. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
The Houston Rockets select Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Jabari Smith Jr.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
Every time I step on that floor, I'm coming.
Hey, Houston fans, I am so happy.
You're getting somebody who's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, somebody who's going to come in and compete from day one.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin. The show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube, where you can help us out a ton by commenting anything on the video. The comments help a ton. But as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on the way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for making LOR part of your day every single day. Joining us now is one of the voices of your Houston Rockets, none other than Ryan Hollins himself. Ryan, it has been far too long since we've had you on the podcast. That is my fault, and I sincerely apologize, man.
You know what? No, you don't have to apologize to me. I'm gonna give you credit, man. Last year, you were the Iron Man. You were cranking these episodes out by yourself. Shout out to Ali Khan. Shout out to Ben DeBose. Those guys are doing a great job. So I understand, man. You got some more cooks in the kitchen, man. So you know us little folk like me and Roosh. We kind of got to sit back and wait our turn, man. We got to go chill, man. Yeah, listen, man. If you want to bump me for Ben DeBose, I got no problem, man.
No. Look. This is honestly a really great time to have you on and just kind of be able to pick your brain a little bit about how things are going with this Rockets young core thing. Some of the things that you're seeing, and where I really want to start with is Jalen Green, because I feel like maybe some of the expectations on him coming into his second year as an NBA player were not necessarily unobtainable, but just, in your eyes, having watched him through his rookie season to where he is now as a player, what kind of stands out to you about how he's developed and how he's just kind of gotten better as the year has gone on?
I think he's developing just fine. And I feel like what you have to understand is that the NBA moves in tiers. So let's say forget a Rockets. Let's say I'm opposing team, right? I'm of the other team. A league-wide scouting report. We go, okay, Rockets are losing. They do this, and this. It doesn't matter. They're going to win the game. Okay, this one kid is starting to show he can score. So we got to pay some attention to Jalen Green. We got to send extra bodies out, and we got to double team. We got to do certain things. Now you get into a situation next year. The league is full of parity. So what are the Lakers in? I think they've jumped. Who's the 12th place team in the West, right? It's a formidable team with an opportunity, right? So now these teams are coming in and saying, these are must wins. We can't drop a game. Before the 5th place team was kind of settled 4 or 5 game difference. These guys, it's one big cluster, okay? So now you're seeing that game against Jalen Green and going, well, he can score the ball, and we don't guard him. Now the respect is there. We don't do what we're supposed to do against him. He's going to drop 40 on us. We're going to end up losing this ball game. So now strategies are created to go out and stop Jalen Green. So I think for a young player, you go from, can I just even score in the NBA? So, okay, now I can score. Now I'm getting attention. Now I'm getting double team. Now I'm getting, certain defenses. Now I'm getting a defender designed I've seen guys start that don't normally start just so they could go guard Jalen Green. So he's adjusting to, how do I become a bucket in the NBA? And I think he's figuring out, who am I as myself as a player? And then who am I with my team? And how can I work with my teammates? And I think we were ecstatic to see him have this, he scored in the 20s, then he scored in the 30s, then he dropped the 40 ball for us, at the end of the season. And I think we're just excited to see that part from him. But I think now it's like, all right, how can I do this? And can I win? And can I fit with my teammates? So he's learning about the gravity and the things around him and the way that he's being played. And I think that also the young Rockets are going like, how can we help Jalen? But sometimes a young guy, as a veteran, you thinking everything around you. Young guy, you think about, man, how do I last in this league? How do I make a name for myself in this league? So that's what happens when you get a group of young guys on the same team.
You mentioned the gravity kind of around Jalen, and I think that's one part that at least stands out to me, Ryan, is throughout this season, right? We know Jalen's a bucket, and even though scouting reports are geared to slow him down as much as possible, he's number one at the top of every opposing team scouting report now, and defenses are being geared to try and stop him on a nightly basis. He's starting to figure out how he can use his gravity as a scorer, right? The threat that he has when he gets going downhill or when he's breaking down somebody, in the two-man game, in the pick and roll, understanding how he can involve Alp or understanding those reads of when to kick it out to shooters. And that's been, I think, the biggest development for me watching him this year is, we knew when Jalen was drafted, right? We knew he was going to be a bucket. He projected to be, that 25 plus per game score at some point in his career. But there was always that hope, like, okay, well, what does he turn into if you add the playmaking to his bag? And I think that's been the most pleasant surprise so far this season for me.
Yeah, he had. And I feel like, we've all seen this since he came back from his injury from the groin. I feel like as a playmaker, he kind of improved. He's kind of bought in. And sometimes it's that gift and the curse where you sit out. So what do you get to do? You itching to get back on the court and you're just watching a lot of basketball and you're going, he comes off this, makes this pass. He's going to be open. And the next time when they had to step up, when they sit back on the pass, I'm going to have the shot that's going to be even more open for me. Or, wow, Alp's pretty darn good, man. How can I fit in what he's doing? And I think even when Kevin and Jalen went out, especially when Kevin went out the first time, I think Alp gained the respect of, forget the coaching staff, some of his teammates. That was big in a offensive role. So I think this is a young group that's very much figuring it out, man. And sometimes you see veteran groups, dude, that don't figure it out. Like this ain't just like hold on, PSA. This ain't just like a Rockets thing. This is teams have to figure it out. And there are some teams that do and some teams that don't. And it takes time. And sometimes it clicks. And then sometimes you get one guy added to the equation and it goes, wow, voila. Like that solved all problems. That's where, you got to credit, I think, Chris Paul, the guy, former Rocket. That's where his kind of legacy was there's a lot of stuff. And then Chris came and it click. Like Chris made, they click LeBron as a guy goes somewhere. Click, like you get it. So you do value those guys. And I think it's a good problem to have, man. How do we keep our young 20-year-old 40-point scorer happy? How do we help him fit into what's going on?
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a first world problem. Good problems to have here. One of the things too is, and I had the chance to ask Coach Silas about this the other day, but Jalen's home and road splits are kind of crazy, right? He's insanely good at home, and then he kind of dips a little bit and struggles on the road some. And one of the things that Silas highlighted was how important the routine is for some of these players, right? Especially when you're a young player, you're still getting accustomed to what being an NBA player is like, and sometimes the routines are not necessarily locked into stone. You're on the road, things are different. How important is that? And can you speak to, Ryan, the idea of when you're a player, when you're traveling on the road, trying to maintain that routine so you can have the same level of productivity that you do on the road as you do at home?
So when I was in the league, I had 6 different Groundhog Days. So what I mean by that, for those who don't know, are younger, Groundhog Day was a movie where I woke up, the same thing happened every day. The alarm clock went off.
Yeah.
Same guy walked out to get the mail. The same deal happened. So I had 6 of them while I played in the NBA, if that makes sense. So I had my home routine, right? I did at home. I do these things, check them off every time. On a practice day, I do this. On a road shoot-around day, I do this. Road game day, I do this. So they had to find out what their routine is. That breeds consistency. And then there's an element where I'm going to see Jose Alvarado on the road. Then I'm going to see Jose Alvarado at home. Those are different guys. You have some veterans that struggle on the road. Hey, sometimes you have teams that play well, better on the road because there's less distractions than when they're at home and the friends and the family, everybody's there, So it's just kind of a culture team. You have to learn how to be a road warrior. You have to tighten up. You have to do everything better on the road because the other opposing team is going to play better. And the one thing the Rockets are, they're fun, they're excited to get up and down. But what happens is you got to have a half-court offense that travels. Think about the next game we just watched last night. What did they do? Second half, man, they were like, move the ball on offense, put the kids to bed, right? They just got bored. Like, the ball was moving like 10 times in possession. It was like, dang, this is like boring basketball. Why, that's a very veteran team over there. And they're like, learn up. We ain't letting y'all get out in transition no more. We ain't letting y'all. No, Coach Jacques Vaughn was probably like, hey, man, no more first shot dones. Like, make them work. And our young guys were like, oh, this is work.
It was a lot. It was a lot to keep up with.
Yeah. So I say that in the sense, you learn that as you go on. And I can tell you that Jose Alvarado going to be better at home. He a different animal, but till you see it, or like, man, that role player, and it's not necessarily always the stars, Jackson, the role player who going to be chasing you around, he hit shots at home that he don't hit on the road. So there's definitely an adjustment that being young, you have to go through. And I can tell you as a coach, but you have to experience it as a player.
Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about Alperen Sengun, some of the defensive side of the basketball, some of the things that he's learning how to do with this Rockets team, areas that he might be able to improve upon. We're going to get there in just one moment, but first, today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Our Nissan's Most Electric Player of the Week is brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. And this week, how could it be anybody other than Jalen Green, whose performance these past few Rockets games has been phenomenal, right? He had the huge just scoring explosion against the San Antonio Spurs. He was electric in game 2 of that back-to-back series. And then on top of that, he had a really, really strong performance despite the outside shooting struggles against the Brooklyn Nets, including these 2 insanely powerful posters against Nick Claxton, who is one of the premier bigs guarding the paint, right? So Jalen Green, you see him, right? He takes off, he elevates, and just this like stunning display of athleticism, elegant, powerful, whatever you want to call it. It was absurd to see the way that he was attacking not only Nick Claxton, but just the entire Brooklyn Nets team in the paint in this most recent Rockets game. Now, if you need some more electricity in your life, you can check out the 2023 Nissan Ariya, which packs pin-to-your-seat power and premium intelligence all in one electric vehicle. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. And Ryan, one of the areas this season, maybe cause for some concern, some fans, overly concerned, maybe others not concerned enough. Alperen Sengun's defense, and I find myself somewhere kind of in the middle of the pack on this about, when you look at the Rockets as a whole defensively, there are some issues, right? Guys are young. They're learning how to, work together in a cohesive defensive scheme. They're still understanding how to close out properly, defensive rotations, all that. But one of the biggest things we've seen, and we've seen it to the point where there have been moments where Steven Silas has even mentioned, hey, I had to sit Alp because the other team was targeting him defensively. We see the Rockets basically consistently run a drop scheme with Alp, right? So it's either they're running a super deep drop where he's all the way back at the rim, or he's, a little bit higher up, guarding, the ball handler. What are you seeing from Alp that he needs to improve upon, or things that he might be able to adjust or do a little bit better as the defensive, as the 5, right? As the guy in the middle of the floor. I mean, that's what you were for your career, right? You were the 5. You were in those spots. You were in those shoes, making those coverages, reading those plays. So what are you seeing from Alp when he's on the court defensively?
He's young. And Jackson, we talked about this. Now when you're the starter versus off the bench, there's different expectations. You're not playing against dynamic players in the starting lineup when you come off the bench. Damian Lillard ain't coming off the bench. You know what I'm saying? Joel Embiid ain't coming off the bench. So you get to go against a second string guy. So defensively, you can be okay. When you start, you are the point guard, the center position. You are the point guard of the defense, which means how the point guard got to come down and you over there, and he got to know kind of when to pass and when to shoot and how to make guys flow, and he has to see a play before it even happens. You have so much control over the game as a point guard. Same way defensively. Jae'Sean Tate is never going to have a control over the game from a small forward position as the center is. So, and when your center is not on point, it's a whole lot of things that break down. And I think the tough thing in terms of Alp, you can say is, man, his offense really overshadows a lot that he does, defensively. And obviously, trust me, if his offense went where it was, he wouldn't be starting. He might not be in the association, okay? But his offensively, he is exciting us because we're seeing things like, yo, that don't grow on trees. That's different. Let's make this thing work. And that's why he's getting in the position that he's in. And I understand with young players, a lot of young players thrown together, it's a boat or it's a roof with a bunch of holes in it. You fill one hole, you got another hole going over there. So it's just tougher when those primary positions are lacking with something you can't substitute. You're gonna put more pressure on Alp. And I think the tough thing is, or what you see is like Alp's a much better athlete than we've seen. And we see his footwork. So I don't think the expectation is ever for him to be a great defender. I don't think he'll be a great defender, but I think he can be a very smart defender. He can be early. He has to be into the scouting report because now
his timing is actually pretty good on defense. That's one of the things that kind of stands out, right? The same timing and the patience and the finesse that helps him on offense. He has those moments where he makes the right read, right? He gets a strip or he's in the right spot at the exact right time, right? He might not be the greatest leaper, the best shot block or whatever, but if he times things just right, which his timing is so impeccable, that's how he kind of makes up for it, I think, at times defensively.
And we've seen some amazing plays out of him. We've seen some amazing dunks. So you're kind of athletic enough. So I think the thing for Alp, it's such a glowing position when you don't play it right. Or like, hey, this guy scrambled over here. This guy went over here. This guy did this. And then you were late. Or you just kind of conceded a layup. So I think it comes back and it hurts him where I think it's tough. You have like a Jabari who maybe can switch out. So then it's like, okay, we're all just small. But ideally, you'd have him be earlier. You'd have him use his athleticism, his intellect. And I think it's part of being young. He's the point guard of the defense. So, it's almost in a sense, if you're point guard, just turn that thing over all the time, you're going to look at him, and I think from a fan's perspective, you see the amazing things he can do on the floor. At times, he's easily head and shoulders the Rockets' best player when he gets going. And you're going, well, there's that leak over there, and that leak over there, and that leak over there. But it's a glaring leak when defensively, he's late. And I think sometimes, man, all is not lost in the world if he has to sit down or he's benched. I don't know what league a player, and listen, man, maybe we could point, that guy should be benched, that guy should be benched. But you know what? Take it for what it is. Let coach see what he sees. And if you're Alp, since the beginning of time have been benched for one reason or another, maybe you got benched unfairly or maybe you got benched fairly, okay? But I think it's an individual. Instead of looking over here, you got to look in here and say, how can I be better? I've been there before as a young player several times. I'm not grabbing a rebound or I'm not catching the basketball or I'm not helping. I'm not doing what I should be doing. Everybody goes through that. But sometimes you get benched, you get out your own feelings or you go, man, I got to focus more on this side of the ball. Because if I can be smart, I can plug holes and I can do this, and this, man, the sky's the limit. Because that offensive side, I'm special on that side. I'm really good. I bring something to the table. So I feel for Alp, they're just those little holes. He can be his controllables are being alert, being early. You have to communicate. Like your point guard can't be a mute calling the question, calling the plays. You can't be a mute calling the calls and the coverages. And you got to be the last line in defense, and I think he's also in a space where he is younger. Let's give him credit because he does have some good defensive moments, like you said, Jackson, where, how would I put it? He can communicate, he can talk, but I think he just got to be more prepared. And I think, he'll continue to grow from there. And like, man, it's a different struggle. It's a different struggle now, when you're the starter, there's a heavier, it's a huge responsibility. And I do want to address something. Everybody went wild when he got benched in Portland. And I think ultimately, like anybody, we want to see Alp play, but you got to I'm not on the bench. I'm not in those huddles. You got to let coach sees what he sees. from my perspective, you got to a certain point in the game where Coach Silas was just trying to figure out how does this guy not make history on us? And it was just too late because he tore every coverage up. You just figure out how can he not make history on us? And Damian Lillard is the best at what he does for that reason. But at a certain point, I don't think it was nothing personal. LP, personal, anybody. He just like, look, let's go zone.
He just started throwing stuff. He was just like, what can we do to slow him down? Yeah.
Yes. And then, hey, in young Jabari, we're gonna give him some accountability too. When he switched on, they switched everything. He got on Dame. He did a great job, and then he pulled the young move, and he plays great on Dame, and then Dame pops out, and Jabari's still standing in the same spot. It's like, no, go follow him, dude. Go follow him. So it's just part of being young. And when you play those primary positions, you got to take it on the shoulders. Look, LeBron James, probably the most heavily scrutinized player in the game, because if you're going to call him the greatest, you're going to scrutinize him on the other side. James Harden, one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen play the game. James Harden gets a lot of love. He gets a lot of very critical. So when you get on to those bigger names, I think it's a sign of respect for Alperen. I want people to take that. He's going to be criticized, or he's going to be held accountable, and that's just a part of it. And listen, does him getting benched in one game hurt his development or take him back or push us over or under the limit? No, man, it probably helps him more because he's gonna lock in more. He's gonna be held more accountable, and I don't think there's anything just specific to him. He just has a heavy responsibility on his shoulders.
Coming up, we're going to shift gears and focus on a couple of Rockets rookies in the rotation, Jabari Smith Jr. and Tari Eason, taking a look at their season so far, what stands out from their play. We're going to get there in just one moment after a quick message from our friends over at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories that usually comes along with it, you've got to try Built Bar, because look, with Built Bar, healthy is actually tasty. They are so incredible. You won't even think that they're good for you. What makes Built Bar so amazing? Well, first off, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in so many unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, strawberry, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel. The list really goes on and on and on. My personal favorite is coconut brownie chunk, but you can't go wrong with a single flavor on their menu. Every single bar is jam-packed with protein, right? They're basically candy bars that are jam-packed with protein. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein in every single bar. And now, you don't even have to wait to get a box. You can go in person to your local Sam's Club, Walmart, and grab a box right off the shelf. But if online ordering is more your speed, go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your very next order of the best tasting protein bars on the market. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at Built.com. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Continuing our conversation with one of the voices of your Houston Rockets, Ryan Hollins. And Ryan, Rockets have a pair of rookies on this team, and they've had some incredible highs this season. They've also had points where they've struggled because they're a young team. We've hashed this out. I don't know how many different times that this show is. They're a young team. They're going to have peaks and valleys. Let's start with Jabari, because I think for Jabari, there was kind of this expectation for him to come into the NBA and be able to translate right away, because in college he was a shoot shot, 3-and-D kind of guy in college, but more than just a 3-and-D, right? Like he had the mid-range, he had the post, he had a lot that he was doing in college, but I think there was an expectation that his skill set was going to translate to the NBA really right away, right out the gate. But I think at times, and even I'm guilty of this at times, is we forget that he is just 19 years old, right? He's a kid and he's adjusting to playing in the toughest league in the world. I think there's a lot of Rockets fans that are really worried about Jabari and worried about his future, and they throw around the bust label and whatever. I am nowhere near that point right now. It's unfortunate that he's been struggling from three and maybe doesn't have the confidence where it should be for a guy of his talent level. But what are you seeing from him to this point through his rookie year?
Well, in terms of in the now, he's just really young. We have a team also, and with Jabari's skill set, we just don't have the luxury, and that's sometimes when you are the first pick in the draft, you're going into a situation where he's got to create his own shot, and that's not necessarily a strength of Jabari's game. Okay, so look at Keegan Murray, right? Kid over in Sacramento. What's his job, Jackson? He runs to those what?
Runs to the corners.
and he stands in the corner and he shoots in the corner. And he ain't the defender that Jabari is. He's big. He ain't the defender that Jabari is. So guess what? He's going to have more success because guess what? His shots that he's getting with Sabonis and Fox, he's lining the ball up. He's licking his fingers and taking them, and he's wide open. We don't have an offense that's going to create those shots for Jabari Smith Jr. So he's been asked to do I don't want to say asked to do. He's been in a situation where he's put the ball on the floor a little more. He's had to grow. He's had to take more growing pains. He's not necessarily in a system where he's just catching and shooting. And those corner threes are right there. The team has had struggles defensively. So, hey, man, just as much as Alp's trying to figure it out, he's trying to figure it out. But I think the exciting part, we've seen his shooting mechanics, which are excellent. I mean, listen, you heard it come out my mouth. His shot mechanics remind me of Klay Thompson. That high release, a tall Klay Thompson. I don't just throw that out. We're talking just shoot mechanics, okay? I'm not calling him Klay yet. I think that could be a ceiling, okay? But with his high release, his mechanics, he can shoot right over players. We've seen him, and this is a very valuable stat, Jackson. I want you to quantify this. Remember this word that I'm going to tell you. He blocks shots out of area. So he's not necessarily just standing under the rim or it's the obvious one. Jabari comes from one side of the rim to the other and blocks a shot. So he's an eraser. He can make up for mistakes. That's huge. Also, within the mistakes that Jabari may make or the plays that he may not convert, he ain't soft. It's the difference between being skinny and soft or skinny and tough. He's tough. He's trying to go in there. He's trying to create physicality. In his mind, I should be doing this.
I'm loving the.
When I stand next to him, he looks height. So the way around. So it's not like what's tough right now is, hey man, Jalen, you can say, is not being put in the prime position because we don't have the players around it where just things are just easy for Jalen Green. It's just catch and shoot for Jalen Green. And he's just getting lobbed up. He's got to work for some of his baskets. He's got to figure it out. Jabari's got to figure it out. You know, he may not be in the most ideal. We don't have a personnel right now that maybe put him in the most ideal situation. But the biggest thing he's getting is minutes. He's getting an opportunity to play. He's getting an opportunity to make mistakes. So I'm excited for what we've seen because I can see what is going to be moving forward. And I think he's getting an opportunity that he wouldn't have anywhere else or more minimal places in the entire NBA. But I feel like, hey, he can hit an open shot. He can defend 5 positions. I'm looking forward, moving forward. And then, hey, he should be able to post up mismatches. And I feel like it's really exciting moving forward. And like one thing I see in Jabari that I saw myself as a young player, which is promising, but it can be kind of frustrating now. People don't notice about him. I don't know to say they don't notice about him, but you don't know to this extent. He's really smart. Like he's really smart. And with very, very smart guys, sometimes they overthink things. But there's a lot going on. But he's working on a different wavelength. I think what I like a lot of people don't see is Jabari communicates a lot. He's a big talker. He has high expectations from him. He's barking. He's like, he feels like I'm going to be one of those guys. So while he's not there yet, that drive, that like, yo, I'm like, he sees himself as something, with all due respect, he's not yet. But it excites me because I know he's going to be that because he ain't just mulling around. He loves basketball. He gets in extra work, and we know that. So I think with Jabari, you get excited because he cares. And he's smart, and when that clicks, it's gonna click. And sometimes smart guys overthink things. Hey man, adults overthink things. We overthink a lot of stuff, right? So I'm ecstatic for him, Jackson. I'm ecstatic for him. He really excites me, and I think he's just a guy you gotta be patient with.
He's a total workhorse, right? Like we knew this, you know, hearing about his work ethic and everything coming out in the draft. And then you talk about the communication aspect of it. And that's the one part where, you know, I remember going all the way back to Summer League, right? Being there in person at Summer League, hearing him communicate on the floor. And we see it consistently, you know, on the court where he's yelling, he's talking, he's telling guys, you know, trying to communicate, figuring out, and it might not always be the right call, right? He's still learning stuff. He's still trying to figure out where he's supposed to be on the floor relative to his teammates, like all that stuff. but the willingness, right, to communicate is such a big factor defensively, because sometimes you get guys who go out there and they're not communicating, right? You're not calling out things. You're not trying to, call out coverages to your teammates and give them the heads up, give them the benefit of the doubt where a certain guy is going to be, what you're noticing on the floor. And that's big for a guy like Jabari, right, who at times, right, he's playing the 4, sometimes he's playing the 5. And you mentioned earlier, right, that's the point guard, that's the quarterback of the floor defensively. So having a guy that is willing to communicate, right, is willing to kind of try and quarterback the defense from those spots is going to be huge further down the line as he learns, as he grows, and as he gets more accustomed to what he's actually seeing happen on the court.
I'll share this with you too. One thing I like that I can speak from my personal experience, and I can't say this for everybody, I play with young guys. Sometimes young guys get the wrong advice. They get the bad advice. They think they're something that they're not, and they don't end up being that, and it ends up hindering them. Much like KJ Martin, Jabari Smith Sr. tells him the right things. You don't need to be critical of him. You don't need to tell him what he's doing right or doing wrong. Jabari Smith Sr. is a veteran. He's played the game. He knows the game. He ain't sugarcoating nothing with his son. You don't need to tell him what he did right, he did wrong, or whatever. Jabari Smith Sr. telling his son the right things. Hey, man, you got to be better. Hey, man, you got to do X, Y, and Z. So I love that. I wish my dad was, played years in the NBA. My dad was rest his soul, was the track and football guy. You know what I'm saying? But I say this, like, feel good. He not going home getting stroked by all his buddies, and his dad is like, man, you ain't got a rebound, son. Go in there and
he's
rebound.
Getting into him.
Go in there and run the floor. He's not being. He's not getting these false.
He's not being coddled, right? That's the one you worry about. Is you don't want a player to be kind of insulated, or everybody's telling, oh, don't worry, you'll be fine, you're doing great. Like you want some of that tough love, right? To be able to really mature and grow and be the best version of yourself that you can be.
Kind of like when I come on Locked On Rockets and I don't bring it, you pull me to the side and you guys don't see it after the show. This guy's all over me. I'm going, Jackson, goodness, but I've become better for it.
Give Hollins a tough love. I'm over here in the sideline coaching him, like, come on, Ryan, we got this. No,
but look, hey, KJ Martin too. There's no accident. KJ Martin having this. Kenyon ain't telling him do something. Kenyon is telling him play the right way. He's always said this publicly: play the right way, do what you're supposed to do. And KJ Martin he's so good. Let's go to another segment. I get started on KJ Martin. We this show gonna go way over. Okay, Belt Bar gonna be mad at us. All right, I'm gonna go too far over.
Look, well, I'll tell you what. We'll save the KJ Martin discussion for another episode, because KJ has been fantastic this season. But I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about Tari Eason, because look, Tari, I think Rockets fans fell in love. Like, he became a fan favorite the moment he stepped on the court. He plays with so much intensity, so much heart, so much passion. His motor never stops, right? I remember at one point earlier this season, Coach Silas said, Tari's a guy who plays to exhaustion, right? Like, he goes out there on the court, and when he's done on the court, right? You saw the other night, after that quarter in the San Antonio game where he played the entire quarter, he went to go check out. He was soaked. You could tell he was gassed. He was gasping for air. He is a guy that gives you 110% every second that he is on the court. And he makes things happen, right? The rebounding, the transition play, the defense. I was high on Tari, like, going into the draft. I was excited when they landed him at pick number 17. I was over the moon. He has far exceeded any expectations that I had for him as a rookie through this point in his NBA career.
One of my mentors gave me this phrase. Forgive me if I offend at all, but this is towards me, and sometimes we all need this. Keep it simple, stupid. What I mean by that is, like, or what that phrase means, I hope I don't offend. Sometimes we overcomplicate stuff. Tari Eason don't overcomplicate nothing. Jackson, you can close your eyes and know what he's going to do. He's going to give you 110%. He's going to reach and grab, and sometimes he might not get a steal, but he going to keep chasing somebody down and get the play. Like, we've seen Tari turn over the ball, miss a layup, and then, like, get it right
and
back.
then he has the ball within 5 seconds, right?
He has the ball right back. So you're like, you know what? You can live with all those mistakes. And I think it's fun. Jackson, we talked about this. This is the time of year where rookies turn into sophomores. And you saw in San Antonio, those missed layups, he started dunking them. He started knocking them down. He started getting more comfortable. Hey, out on the fast break, he was pushing, and then I'm going to get fouled. I'm going to go make a layup, And you knew those points were going to jump from 8 to 10 to 20 in a heartbeat, or 17 or 18 in a heartbeat. So I'm ecstatic, man. There's a special place in my heart for a guy like Tari Eason, man. When you get up and down and you play hard, you dive on the floor, you do those little things. And for Coach Stephen Silas, you know there's nothing perfect about what he's doing, but you're like, he gonna figure it out. He's not hurting us. His numbers are quantified, and shoot, that's why. And at that deadline, is not often, but teams were trying to pull a slick one, like, hey man, how about that Tari Eason, man? You gonna hold on to him? Because when you look at the analytics, his numbers jump at you. His plus minus, his activity is still, because it jumps out at you. So, man, he's exciting. And I like him. You know what I really like? There's no way around it. These are competitors. Jabari and Tari are going to push each other. You look over, Jabari looks at Tari, dang, Tari did that. All right, I got to be better. Jabari hits some shots. Tari looks over, man, I got to be better. You know, those guys are pushing each other. And you got KJ, you got Tate. Those guys are pushing each other. So I feel like we have a fun mix. And that's a position, Jackson, in the NBA, where, you know, we could come out and let's say this is the Rockets in, 4 or 5 years. And it's like, you know, hey, man, Tate's point guard, KJ's the 2, Jabari's the 3, and Tari's the 4, and whoever's like it's an interchangeable position right now. So it's exciting. You gotta be a little patient, but it's exciting. And I think we can see, you can kind of bear with Tari's mistakes a little more. He's a little older, he's a little more seasoned, he's stronger. We can see, but like where the improvements there. And Jackson also, like, he's light years ahead where we thought he'd be shooting the 3 ball also. Like, he gets an open look at 3, like with his feet set. I
feel confident it's going in. Like when Tari pulls threes, I'm thinking, oh, that's a bucket. Like,
you don't feel bad.
Yeah.
You're not going, oh, again. Like, no. I'm right. We're confident, Jackson. So I think Tari has this ecstatic. Is he like ready now? Is he the guy? No, but you're like,
you see glimpses of it, right? And you talk about, right, yes, for better or for worse, some of the stuff he thrives in the chaos, right? Like, he goes on the floor and he is going to create chaos, good or bad. And sometimes but sometimes even the bad will lead to some good, right? Because like it'll be a missed shot or a turnover. Guess what? It turns into another steal or an offensive board, right? And I feel like his teammates, right? And I don't know if you can speak to this from experience, right? Having a teammate like that, somebody that they're checking into the game and they're going to play with that 110% energy, that insane motor. And I don't know if that like helps you like amp up your game a little bit, because you're like, I got to be on the same level as this guy when he checks into the game. Like, what's that like, having a teammate like that? Is there anybody that you think to in your career that had that same kind of mentality that Tari does when he stepped on the court?
Well, I was normally that guy.
There we go.
that was me, tongue hanging out my mouth. I didn't have half a Tari skill, but that was kind of like my mindset. So I'm excited for it. But I will say, different, but in a sense, like I played with Tony Allen. Okay. And I'm not saying he's Tony Allen, but I say Tony in the regards where like Tony would make stuff up defensively. I see Tari make some stuff up sometimes. Like, you're guarding a shooter, Tony Allen might go over the screen, he might go under. And for me, I would have just adjusted what he was going to do. But with guys like that, I never want to take Tony's instincts away. I never just, dang it, Tony, go over the screen. Because somehow he go under the screen and he make his way through. So I'd always kind of give almost a gap and say, if he go left, I'm going right. He goes right, I'm going left. Let me just cover for him. And then he's poking the ball away or he's doing something special. So Tari, just in a defensive kind of instinctual sense, excites me. And then Tari like never dies on a play. So I think if you're playing with Tari, you kind of figure out around, hey, what is he doing? I think the communication can always be better, but he's got those guys, like you don't want to take him away. Like, you know what I'm saying? You want to throw that lion in the zoo. You want to keep him in a safari. You know what I'm saying?
Let Tari be Tari and let the other guys kind of figure it out around him, because he's gonna make some good stuff happen on the court. Man, Ryan, this has been fantastic. Again, I love hearing your thoughts on the young guys. I love hearing you kind of break down what you're seeing from these guys. Do you have any final words? A message you want to share with Rockets fans before we wrap this one up?
Stay with us. Stay with us. Stay patient. We go through tough times. Where I'm from, we don't wither when we see tough times. Maybe we don't agree with everything that go on. Like, then we got to stay together, man. Like, that bothers me. Don't go. This is just me just keeping it real with y'all. Don't go attacking Jackson.
Oh.
Damn it. Don't go attacking Craig. Don't go attacking me. Look, man, ain't nobody trying to lose. Ain't nothing about this perfect. And I think that let's maintain our we ain't losers mentality. We won a championship here in Houston. Ain't nobody going in, man. I'm just about to mess this thing up. Ain't nobody. We don't need to agree with everything going on, but you got people getting paid a lot of money to try to figure this thing out. Let's stay together. You don't need to hate Coach Silas. We don't need to hate nobody. We don't need to have a problem with nobody. You should challenge people to be better. We don't need to hate nobody. We don't need to attack people. We need to, I can't stand. And I want that mentality. I don't ever want Houston to be comfortable with losing. I am not. I know I am happy during the broadcast. I'm ecstatic because I see these young guys and how hard they work. I'm not comfortable with losing. Nobody is. But let's stay together. Let's see the bigger picture. Let's see tomorrow. Let's see what tomorrow looks like. Let's be frustrated after a game. Let's get off our chest and let's come back and support these young guys because these young guys need you. They need me. They need all of us. And I wore those shoes before, and it's hard. And for those who hadn't, everything you say and do means something. Stay together, man. I don't like I don't like when the family feuds and I see people splintering and dividing and I'm not a Rockets fan no more. I'm not like, yo, ride through this. But we ride down that championship alley. we turn it up, all right? Like, you're going to want to be a part of it. You're going to be like, man, heck yeah, I stay there with that. Come to these games, man. Tweet these guys. Support these guys. So let's celebrate this. Like, right now, Jackson, celebrate the small things because they turn into big things. And whatever this organization has in store, whatever it has to do, ride with it, man. But don't be confused. Nobody likes losing. I don't want anybody content with that. But, man, love this game, man. Ride with these people. Ain't nobody just trying to lose. Trust it and have faith that your organization will do the right thing. Sometimes things are going to happen that you're not going to understand. Sometimes you'll get a happy accident. Hey, you'll get Alperen Sengun in the draft. You'll get Tari Eason in the draft. You'll mess around. OKC will hand you James Harden. Those things happen. You know what I'm saying? And then you rock. Okay? But we got a good group. We got good guys that love basketball. They ain't perfect. They're young. They learning. Think about where you were at 19 years old. Think about what you would be at 19. Yeah, Jackson is hiding. Jackson glad it wasn't just camera phones and all that all over the place. Just
absolutely.
Catching him in certain moments, right? And imagine being someone, you are 19 that might be here. Imagine if you were 19 with a couple $1 million in your pockets and being the main provider in your immediate and surrounding family, being that breadwinner. Just tell me how you would deal with that. Because everybody could look and point and he and ha without it. But it's hard for these kids, man. So they need your support. Stick with them and ride with them. I'll just say one thing for y'all know who y'all are, whatever it is. I don't like with the family feuds. I don't like that. And these are young kids out there. I don't want y'all to be content with losing. I ain't with that. There's nobody that is with that. But ride with these kids, man. Ride with them. And Jackson, you keep up the good work, dude. You know, we supporting you, we with you, but we got to support each other, man. And listen, by no means am I saying that we shouldn't disagree with each other. We shouldn't challenge each other. I can challenge my brother with respect and still uplift him and still support him and not agree with him and say, man, you crazy. I still love you though. Right? You crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. I still love you though, but we be going crazy. We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. Come on, man. I'm not with that. Stick together. These kids need to, what is it, 20 some odd games? Ride with these kids. Show up to these games. Because in the summertime, we're going to be itching and going, man, I wish I could go to the Rockets game right now. I wish I could see. Just go support, man.
I know that's exactly how I feel. The moment the season ends, I'm like, man, give me my games back. Like I'm a much happier person during the actual NBA season. But I love that motto, right? I love celebrate the little things because they turn into big things. I think that's a great motto. I'm gonna get that tattooed on my forehead and just make that the motto for Locked On Rockets moving forward. Celebrate the little things because they turn into big things. I think that's a good way to kind of encapsulate what we're going through right now, what we're seeing on the court, and what this thing hopefully turns into further down the line. But Ryan, it's always a pleasure to be able to talk basketball with you, man. Thank you so much for making time to come hang out on the show.
Hey, appreciate you, brother. You keep up the good work, man. We see the show growing. We see your wardrobe budget. We see the haircuts. We see the swagger this year. We see the room, man. Keep Keep at it, man. You keep at it. We supporting you, Jackson. I know. Trust me, you like us, sometimes you don't see what's on the other side of the thing. Sometimes we see a lot of the negative comments, but it's a lot of people who rock with you and rock with this team, a lot of positive things going on. So let's shout out. We addressed some of the things we need to fix. Let's address some of y'all keep it up. We're doing positive stuff, man. And Jackson, we appreciate you, man.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts. That's Apple, Spotify, Google, the Odyssey app, free and available on all podcast platforms. We're also available on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.